I mentioned at the beginning of my sermon last week that there was a time when, out of neglect for our relationship, Libby and I kind of drifted apart. And we had drifted apart enough, this is a number of years ago now, but we drifted apart enough that starting to try and talk about it was really hard. And when we tried to talk about it, we just didn't get anywhere. And that just kind of led us to drifting apart a little bit more, and the trajectory was not good. We were drifting apart. And so I was concerned about this, especially after a couple conversations that I had with Libby. And so I told the Lord, you know what, I'm going to get this right. I'm going to start to work harder on my marriage. I'm going to get this fixed. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but what I was thinking was, I'm going to do what only God can do. And I gave it the old college try. I did. I got serious, read a couple books, came up with a whole list of what godly men are supposed to do in their marriages, and went at it. In my attempt to fix the problem, I was actually trying to do what only God can do. I read in the book of Ephesians that I was to love my wife as Christ loved the church. I thought, well, that's easy. I'll try to be like Jesus to her, and I tried to be sacrificial, and I tried to serve, and this kind of stuff. Paul teaches us that we can function in the flesh, right? Which simply, it's the same thing we're talking about here. It means trying to do things that only he can do. It's trying to do things in our own strength. Or we can function in the Spirit, which is trusting him in us to do what only he can do. And what I realized was that as I was trying to improve my marriage, I was doing it in the flesh. I was trying to do it. An example, I've shared this with you before, but I got the idea one day to go home from work a little early and tidy up the house. It's when the kids were small and there was toys everywhere. So I thought, I'm going to go home. And I got home and Libby wasn't there. I'm like, yes. And I just got the whole house tidied up. And when she came home, I was sitting in the kitchen and she walked in. I'm like, hey, honey, I'm home. And she's like, oh, hi. And clean the house. And she's like, thanks. That was kind of it. And between you, me, and the wallpaper, I was expecting a little bit more than that. And so I actually pointed out to her, I said, you know, your response is a little disappointing. She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I picked up the whole house. And she said, I'm sorry, it just doesn't feel loving to me. And years later, as we got language, she would say she could smell the flesh in it. And you're like, well, what do you mean? And well, you see, I wasn't cleaning the house to love her. I was cleaning the house to get something from her. Very different. And people can generally tell when you're doing stuff like that. They can smell it, right? So I was trying to control her perception of me by doing loving, servant-oriented things for her, which terribly confused her because she was being served, but it didn't feel loving, and that's weird. And so we were struggling with this angst, and what was happening the whole time was I was trying to do what only God could do, and it wasn't working, and we were drifting farther and farther apart until the impatience of Jesus within me started to finally bubble up, and I got on my face before him, and I said, I don't know what else to do. It's not working. And he laid on my heart, how about you let me do it? You've been trying to do what only I can do. Love your wife the way Christ loved the church. Christ is the only one who can love like that. Good news is he lives in me. All right, Jesus. And here's what I did. I entrusted my wife to him. And I said, all right, she's yours. I'm not going to try to manipulate her or control her perception of me anymore. I'm not going to do anything unless you specifically prompt me to do it. And however she responds to me, that's your deal, and here we go. And I took my hands off it. Terrifying. I think it was the very next day the Spirit prompted me to go home and pick up the house. I'm like, Lord, I tried that. That didn't work. And he said, you know, you told me that it was in my hands now. This is what I want you to just go love her by picking up the toys. All right. I went home. She wasn't home, picked up the house. She walked in the door. She's like, "You're home." I'm like, "Yeah." "You picked up the house." "Yeah." Eyes fill up with tears, runs across, throws her arms around me, kisses me. "I love you." It's the difference between spirit and flesh. It's the difference between Jesus doing something through me so that all the ill motives are stripped apart. It's just true, pure love through me versus manipulative service to get some. It's totally different.